Hi there. I'm going to do a review for Spider-Man Brand New Day. This came out in the theaters. And this movie is kind of a curious movie. It was directed by Destin Daniel Cretton. I don't think anybody even knows who that is, but yeah, the Marvel movies haven't been directed by regular big names in a little while. Stars the stars the usual Tom, Zendaya, and Mark. But this movie is a little bit different than the other Spider-Man movies. I honestly can't remember what happened in the previous movie. I know that based on what they were talking about in this movie, there was a mind eraser going off in this movie, in the previous movie. But honestly, this movie reminds you that those don't really matter. That eventually they're going to remember. Eventually they're going to figure it out. But nonetheless, Tom Holland's playing Peter Parker, and Peter Parker is living in a strange world right now where he's all alone because, of course, he basically had to make himself anonymous. He's now living in the world of anonymity because of a spell that was cast in the previous film, I believe. I believe that's what happened. But nonetheless, yeah, this movie was quite different because this one introduces us to somebody I don't think a lot of people realized was going to be in this movie. Um, it starts off the usual way. Spider-Man's going around doing the usual spider things. I mean, it's not like we haven't seen this before. This is the same movie as the first movie, as the first Spider-Man from 2002, where it's web slinging at the start, and basically, 2004 was Spider-Man 2. Um, but yeah, this movie here, something weird happens. Spider-Man has an identity crisis of sorts, which is a little bit different than what happened in Spider-Man 2 and 3. Different than anything happened in Amazing Spider-Man. Because we've had so many Spider-Mans, you really don't have to explain Spider-Man or his villains. I believe so far, I think the only thing is that in these Spider-Man movies, they haven't directly referenced his old enemies. They've had to bring in a whole bunch of new enemies. They couldn't use the old ones, like Doctor Octavius can't be used anymore. Green Goblin really can't be used anymore because Green Goblin was already used twice. They can't use these guys. They can't keep using them, so they don't bother. Instead, they come up with a whole new bunch of people that represent the new age of Spider-Man villains. And this movie is all about Spider-Man dealing with yet another villain. Of course, it looks like it could be Scorpion, and it turns out it's not. Somebody can jump mines. Apparently, that's what this whole movie is about. Somebody can jump mines, and it takes a little while for Spidey to realize what is actually going on. Is that somebody can jump mines, and that causes a problem because they can jump all over the place at will, causing all kinds of problems, getting into everybody's situations. Um, I mean, how the heck half the city even operates at this point, I don't know. Given that how the story ends, I'm not sure exactly how this person did this, but nonetheless, eventually you find out it's actually Jean Grey. Although Jean Grey in this movie is not the Jean Grey of. I mean, because we already had the X-Men movies from years ago, and they're kind of over with. We've already had that Jean Grey, and this Jean Grey here is a heck of a lot more developed in her power set than that Jean Grey. But this Jean Grey's powers were kind of confusing because I wasn't entirely aware that she could actually do what she's doing in this movie. I thought that she was a little bit more of a pure telekinesis person and not so much a mind swap or mind cover. I know she could do it a little bit, but the problem was her powers were not properly developed in the old movies. The other thing is too is this Jean Grey is quite young. Actually, what's ironic is how young she actually looks. Because I mean, I believe that Sadie Sink is actually what already in her early 20s. I really don't know because I haven't paid attention to Stranger Things since season 3, so I don't actually know how old any of them is these days. I know they were basically glorified teenagers in the first Stranger Things show, but by now they're all in their what, mid 20s. I mean, that's one of the worst things about this is that yeah, it becomes a little bit hard to deal with because Spider-Man is having to deal with a lot of things because everybody has forgotten who he is. So Mark Ruffalo's Hulk does not remember him, and he's also dealing with a bit of an identity crisis because for some reason, uh, when Jean Grey interacts with him, I think it's because Jean Grey interacts with him a little bit, that his arachnid qualities start to go into overdrive. So he starts to develop very heightened senses, which kind of becomes a problem. Just like in the comics, he was used to having web shooters that actually did come from cartridges, as opposed to web slinging that came from his wrists. In this movie, though, they changed that back a little bit, but he's having a little trouble with these webs because they don't actually do what they should be. They're not working so well because they're kind of erratic at best. Nonetheless, it takes a little while for this to happen. He goes through a lot of situations in this movie. Mostly the fact that he goes to a party where MJ and was it Pete are, and that's a funny scene because MJ and Ned, I forget it's not Pete, it's Ned. But nonetheless, you get scenarios. And he's got to try and figure out what to do in these scenarios. There is one cameo by one of the Avengers of the franchise, one of the Avengers. Now it's the Avengers. These aren't the Avengers of the old. These are the new Avengers because of that movie that came out about a year ago. Was it a year ago? Yeah, I think it was a year ago. 2 years ago? It doesn't really matter. Yelena is here to let us know that one of the Avengers is involved in this movie and to let us know that they do exist. Not entirely sure what she's doing in this movie, but I guess they had to bring her in for the heck of it. Yeah, this movie has the usual qualities of Spider-Man where he's trying to deal with his identity crisis of his arachnid DNA going all out of control. He's having a little trouble with it. Causes problems for him. I don't know. And the biggest problem is that he's dealing with a mind-jumping person who turns out to be Jean Grey. And Jean Grey in this movie, like I said, I don't know that she actually had that power for a long time. I think she had a little bit of it. But that was more of a Charles Xavier thing and not so much a Jean Grey thing. I think Jean Grey could do it a little bit, but this one obviously has a highly developed power in her. Although I'm not sure exactly how or why she's here because given the fact that this must be a multiverse character because her and her sister per se have been around since I mean, in some ways this doesn't make any sense because they don't really show her having telekinesis, except for one scene where they suddenly do show her having telekinesis, so the powers don't make so much sense. Doesn't mean much to say about the power set. She definitely has the ability to jump minds, but I thought she was more of a telekinetic mutant than what Charles Xavier was. Charles Xavier could take over minds. But there is one scene in this movie, and everybody knows the scene now, where it shows her definitely doing a telekinetic moment, which is what her power feature is supposed to be. She does actually stop everybody in a cold trance and causes a force field to go up. Apparently has control over telekinesis. But she never displays it very well. It was a very weird scene, especially with what actually happens out of that sequence. I mean, Spider-Man's sort of arch nemesis or arch character. What is his? Frank Castle there. He comes in, and it's funny because he does something that theoretically shouldn't work in this movie, given what they just established Jean Grey being able to do. They decided that she can control moving objects, except for when it comes to what he does. I'm not going to get into big thing, but he more or less uses a big, sniper rifle. And apparently the projectile gets right through it. I was like thinking, shouldn't that have stopped the moment it hit the thing? Wasn't that the whole point of this scene, was that she stopped everything? Nonetheless, apparently she's immune to all that except for when it comes to that. Apparently his weapon is powerful enough to get through it, even though the joke is that she's got everything stopped within like, what is it, 3/4 of a mile radius or something, a mile radius? I'm not sure exactly how far. It's quite far. Nonetheless, she's looking for her sister, and the powers that be, the people that are trying to do damage control, are trying to keep her sister at bay because they're trying to develop the mutant situation, which is sort of a funny situation. I'm not sure that Sarah is much of a part of the comics. I don't really read the comics. I just know in these movies, Jean Grey in the old X-Men movies was mostly telekinetic. She had a little bit of other stuff, but she definitely was not developed. Like, her ability to do some of the things in this movie were very, very limited, if at all. Nonetheless, movie's not too bad. I mean, it's strange. It exploded at the box office. It's made a lot of money. But I'm not sure I was digging the storyline, because they're presenting Jean Grey as supposedly a misunderstood hero. That's not what they were showing for the first 40 minutes of her being in the movie. She's literally mind jumping. That's a very bad thing to do, and I don't care how misunderstood you are. It's the fact she was playing games with Peter. She in fact takes over MJ for a little bit, but then they end the movie with the idea that somehow this isn't that bad of a thing. I was like thinking, no, this is actually a pretty bad thing, people. What she did was pretty bad. Really bad. In fact, I'm not sure how she can be qualified as one of the X-Men's primary people, given what she just did. Nonetheless, this must be the X-Men's sort of introduction into the franchise, because so far we've had very little of them in these movies. Actually, none. We've had almost none of the X-Men. So we know that the X-Men are being introduced into the movies, and the X-Men are going to be a featurette from here on in. How fast this is going to happen, I don't know. Apparently, like, the next movie is going to be Doomsday, so we know Doctor Doom is coming in, so the Fantastic Four is going to be introduced. We already know from the previous Avengers movie that movie was kind of like, I'm not sure how it fits in this timeline, because it was very confusing, because obviously Yelena is one of the Avengers, apparently. It's not entirely clear what she is. We only know her because they are in the bathtub, and of course the whole joke of that scene is that, she's a pretty girl, and of course she asks him to undress, which I guess is supposed to be a big joke, because that's what it is. Nonetheless, Peter Parker, of course, deals with his arachnid explosion lately. That ends up working out for him a little bit, but not really. I mean, it kind of came at an oddball timeline of the movie. Nonetheless, the movie's alright. I wasn't digging it. I'm not the biggest fan of these Tom Holland Spider-Man movies, because most of his technology is not originally his design. His technology is basically Tony Stark's technology, which I'm not really digging that much of, but whatever. It's the way that this new Marvel's working, they're doing that. But nonetheless, he ends up not so much defeating Jean Grey as he placates her. He gets to the good side. They find out what actually happened, and they get to the good side. But yeah, I'm not... It was alright. It was good enough. I guess it worked. Nonetheless, the certain conflict in character types. But yeah, Spider-Man, Brand New Day.